Hi, everybody. My name is Tanya Taylor Rubenstein, and I'm really excited and a little bit nervous to actually do this video today. And it takes a lot to get me nervous. I speak publicly, I'm trained as an actor, and I am mostly known for working with people on their life stories as solo shows and memoirs, things I still do. But I've created a new offering. I'm creating a global healing team, and some people may hear those words and immediately marginalize me. This video isn't for them. Who this video is really for is people who are deep creatives and also folks who have been on an ongoing spiritual path, a path of awakening, who are already open. Those of you who are already very open to really looking at all the aspects of your life through the lens of wholeness, and that you are striving to create that sense of awakened congruency in all aspects of your life, in your body, your health, in your finances, in your creativity, in your relationships with yourself and others, and however you frame this divine universe we live in. So I wanted to talk to you all about a vision I had. I called this video Vulture Medicine. And that's really about the origin story of when I knew I had to create this global healing team. It wasn't something I planned on doing, but I know well enough and have been long enough on my own very deep, authentic, spiritual and emotional journey, unlearning things and receiving energy and healing and shifts of my consciousness on a pretty deep level. I know this isn't about me, actually. This is about being in service on a bigger level in a way I did not actually expect to be in service. But yeah, you know how that goes, right? We're called to what we're called to do. And in my experience, nature uses us, life uses us in the way when we're aligned with our soul that we can best serve. So about 18 months ago, I was at my mother's house in rural Maryland, and it was sunrise. And I had just dropped my daughter, Chloe, on an early morning flight to Boston. It was winter. My mother was very sick, very ill, didn't know if she was going to make it. She did. And my husband and I were down in Maryland, and I just dropped Chloe at the airport, but I was by myself, I don't know, around 5 a.m. And I got lost on this rural country road, and I went out of the service area where there's maps on your phones. And I was like, I don't know where I am. It was kind of creepy, to be honest with you. It was creepy because it was rural Maryland, and I passed a house that had a Confederate flag in the window. Sort of atypical for anywhere I would normally go. Driving down this kind of, it wasn't a dirt road, but it was a rural one-lane road, and with houses on both sides, and then, but woods all around. And the sun was coming up, and I'm like, I'm totally lost. I've got to go back. This is definitely the wrong way towards where I came from, and get back in to be able to see on my iPhone where I was going on one of those maps programs on Google Maps. So I stopped, and I did this to do a U-turn. But before I started to turn, I looked across the street, and it was like a farm barnyard. And there was a fence around the front, and there were donkeys and burros inside the fence, alive. And on the fence, there was a vulture. And I made eye contact with the vulture, and what came to me is, I'm the vulture. And then I looked down and saw that like below the vulture that I was looking, there were 6 other vultures. and they were picking at a carcass, like a rib cage, like I didn't see the rest of the body, but a rib cage of what looked like one of the donkeys or burros, sort of made sense. They were in the barnyard, about the size of what you would expect. And the sun was rising behind this, and the sky was a kind of beautiful pinky, orangey, like a winter sky sunrise. And I just sat there and I just watched these vultures. And I don't think I'd ever seen a vulture that I knew of in person. Maybe I'd seen one on a highway, eating at a carcass somewhere along the line, a single one. But I'd never seen anything like this. But I knew they were vultures. And I got the phrase vulture medicine. And anyone who knows me or watches my videos sometimes or my Facebook Lives knows that I'm very connected on a spiritual level to birds. I know that in indigenous cultures, birds are seen as messengers from the other side. When I did a shamanic journey once with a guide, and we were doing a journey to identify one of our medicine animals, spirit animals, totem animals, birds kept coming to me. I saw actually an owl first, but later I saw ravens and crows. Definitely identify with them all. And then I get this thing in person, not in a spirit journey, with the vultures, and just the words coming to me, I'm a vulture, which was weird. And we think of my associations were not great about vultures, right? Scavenger crew. So I stared at the birds for a few moments, took a photo with my iPhone that didn't really come out later very well when I checked on it. And I eventually made that U-turn and drove home. And as soon as I got back into, knew where I was going, checked the maps, I actually pulled over again because I wanted to look up vulture medicine. And what I read about vultures was that in the medicine world, in certain Native American tribes, they're actually seen as like God's cleanup crew. I actually saw that phrase, like spirits cleanup crew, maybe not God's, but spirits cleanup crew. And what I read about them is that of all the birds of prey, the large birds of prey, they're the only ones that don't kill their prey, but rather they're able to digest and transform like many bad, like bacteria, parasites, things that could spread diseases. They're actually able to digest that and neutralize it, and they play a very important role. You might have heard that they're like the garbage collectors of humanity, but if you think about it, how the garbage collectors, play a very important role. Otherwise, we'd have rotting garbage and disease running rampant. And to get a little bit creepy for a minute, it's like, so rotting flesh everywhere spreads diseases, all of these things. So the vultures actually are not, they don't kill their prey. They eat prey that's already dead, and they serve a very important function. And I got home and I do a process called wisdom writing, where I access knowledge. It's something I teach often to my clients, to access the story behind the story, to get in touch with one's own higher self or wisdom voice, to get clear on something. So I wanted to get clear on this, me being the vulture, and immediately the words came, the seven, and there were 7 vultures, and I started writing, what is this about? So I was actually told that I was going to create a global healing team. And I wrote a bit more about how it might serve and what it might look like, and what sort of just came through. I wouldn't say I was like planning it, but a kind of plan came through as an alternative to treatment centers or therapy, or going and doing ayahuasca in Peru, or chasing gurus, many of those things I've done, by the way, that this was going to be an online global healing team that could work with people at a very high level, at a mastery level. And I immediately started thinking about people I know, people I've worked with. This is a very intimate story for me to share because behind the scenes, because I'm a leader, because I worked with so many people on their solo shows and directed and worked off Broadway and worked with people on getting their memoirs published, had a book published myself, and do a lot of high profile work with performing artists and musicians. It's like, but behind the scenes, the deeper story, the story behind the story is I wouldn't have been able to do any of that. As a matter of fact, I'm not sure if I would have survived or if I would have survived. It certainly wouldn't have been as a very functional, present human being who's a leader and able to accomplish a lot and serve others, had I not done a tremendous amount of healing work myself for the past 28 years. And I started thinking about the real master level people who had helped me and supported me and invited them to come on this team. And in all kinds of modalities, the modalities that have worked and been the most powerful for me. Some of these modalities include things that people sort of know, archetypal dream work, homeopathy, family constellation work, working with the medium, who can actually, she's like the person I'm bringing onto my team. Actually, it's like she can talk to anyone on the other side of the veil. It's almost like a phone line to the other side. And I've never talked about all these things publicly. I started out in 12-step programs. I started out having a very specific spiritual experience when I was kind of somewhere between an atheist and agnostic that kicked me out of New York City during the AIDS crisis, which was impacting a lot of the people, including dear friends in my community, my theater community in New York. I didn't really believe in anything. I was very skeptical, still quite skeptical of organized religion, but I was thrown onto a spiritual path. It wasn't something I was looking for or even seeking. In some way, it found me, and it completely changed my life. And I left New York for Santa Fe based on a strong sense of intuition once I was on that path. And then I thought about about 25 years ago, after I'd been on that path for a while, I was in Estes Park, Colorado, working with at a silent retreat, but there was a teacher there present. And we weren't allowed to talk except in what was called satsang, which were these small meetings speaking about the deeper truth. Our deeper soul identity and our connection to all. And in a satsang meeting, I said, I want to make a vow. The teacher looked at me. It was in front of about 500 people. And I said, I want to marry the truth with no possibility of divorce. And the teacher looked at me and she paused for a minute and she said, Tanya, that's actually a very dangerous vow. You need to really understand what you're vowing to. And I said, I want to let it stand. At the time, I think I was very naive. I'm glad I made that vow, by the way. But I didn't understand at the time what she was sort of pointing to in terms of the way of danger. There was a deep, profound sense of surrender. And I was going to have to lose a lot of things before I was to come into my wholeness. I think I really came into my wholeness about 4 years ago, right around the time I was 50 years old. And I lost my husband, who at that time, when I made that vow, was my fiance. And he was angry that I made that vow when we hadn't even gotten married yet. He thought I should just be marrying him, not the truth. I lost him to schizophrenia. We had a beautiful daughter together. And I became a single mom, which was sort of the one thing in my mind that I didn't want to become and imagined that I actually couldn't do. And yet I did. She's now 21, almost 22 years old and thriving. as an actor, I had absolutely no idea how to make money, make an income. I ended up becoming a professional solo performance coach, one of the few of us who's very successful and has worked for many years, have had amazing opportunities, had to deal with a lot of internal healing around acute anxiety disorder that presented right around the time that my former husband was diagnosed with schizophrenia, when I felt completely shattered by life and overwhelmed. So I had no idea what that devotion to truth would actually, how things would unfold with that. But I feel like, about 4 years ago, I really landed in my, what I'd say, spiritual sovereignty. A lot of things around me happened and changed. I ended up meeting and marrying my soulmate. I came into my full sexuality, which had really never completely happened. I became more confident in all ways, including my business. I started generating more income, and ultimately just came into a sense of wholeness with myself, and worked with a healer who actually got me off anti-anxiety medication, which, if any of you are on it, know is a very, very difficult thing to do in a way that has been miraculous. So in closing, so I have put together this team, the 7. And here in my private Facebook group, if you're seeing it in here, I'm making this video for there, though I may post this video other places online. If you run into it there, I have a private Facebook group here called the 7, where we talk about healing and healing processes, and where I speak about how you can interface and actually work with my online global healing team at different levels. I have different programs for people writing a book with me, to be able to do healing work behind the scenes to support them on that journey. And I also just have packages. We have packages where you can work with our healing team from anywhere in the world remotely, to address whatever issues are deep and kicking your ass, and maybe you've already done some healing work and some consciousness work, but we really specialize in the things that are really hard to break through, that are really old, really deep, and impact the biggies, right, for most people: health, relationships, finances, and often creativity, which is my area of expertise. But those are like, biggies for folks. So I look forward to sharing with you more here in the group, if you're seeing it in the 7, and if you're seeing it someplace else online, connect with me, Tanya Taylor Rubenstein, or connect with and find my free Facebook Live Facebook group online, the 7, and lots of more talk and healing practices and sharing and offerings there. All right, lots of love, you guys. Bye-bye.